All right, ladies and gentlemen, Joe McMurrian.
Hey, thank you. Hi, folks. I'm happy to be here. I'm glad you guys are here. Hope you've been having a good time. I just pulled myself out of bed, and I'm sorry if I act a little strange. I had this terrible ear infection all week. I couldn't hear until the day before yesterday, and now it's just kind of messing with me a little bit, but this makes it more interesting inside my head. So I guess in talking about the anthology, I think you guys have been talking about all the other aspects of Smith's canon of work. And I'm privy to that. I'm a fine artist myself in undergrad at the Art Center in Pasadena. I had heard about his stuff. I'd seen his visual art, seen his films. I was a muralist for years as well, and saw that and totally respected his diversity, you know. And then, it was like 20 years ago, someone gave me a Robert Johnson CD for Christmas and the anthology. And I pretty much had a conversion moment and sold every bit of electricity that I owned and just delved into the acoustic side of music. For no other reason than just that it's pure. It's really pure. Anthology deals with this. Does everybody have the anthology? Yeah? Okay. Because to a musician like me and the people, I threw a concert last night at the Mission, everybody there, it's really important, as it was to the folkies of the 60s. And why is that? I don't know if you guys have ever read this book here. I just brought it to show it off. It used to be called The Invisible Republic by Greil Marcus. Now it's Old Weird America. And it deals with Smith, the anthology. Pretty much the whole book is about Smith's anthology. But as it relates to Dylan's basement tapes with the band. And just using the basement tapes as, I guess you'd say, a reincarnation or some sort of attempt to get back to some purity in music is what they did. And it was because of Smith's contribution that made, Dylan kind of reconsider, what music is supposed to be. Is it supposed to be didactic? I don't believe so. I don't believe that artists really have a role to do like that. We're not, we're not politicians. We're artists, So when he turned away from being the spokesperson for someone else's cause, the puppet for someone else's ideas, he became an artist for us. Dylan did, But the reason Dylan, in large part, understood that he needed to do that was because of the anthology. Even those basic songs, it could be about a bird or a dog, but symbolically and metaphorically, it really means so much more. And Smith knew this instinctively. He knew that by reminding America of this lost period that we had forgotten, at that time in '52, it was just 20 years earlier that these guys were performing this music, and many, many other people were doing the same that were never recorded. And at that time, when he put it out, at the height of the McCarthy era, at the end out of the Depression, out of World War II, America had been completely wiped clean of this originality. Everybody went to the city. The rural music disappeared. They stopped recording rural music. When I say rural, I mean like the representation of the black, the German, the Italian, the gospel, the what have you across the spectrum. All that stuff just went away, and it became about like blues became citified, which led to rock and roll and all that stuff, which was a commercial pursuit. It was run by the record companies, right? The advertising. I work in advertising these days, and I'm real privy to the fact that advertising is useful, and everybody needs stuff. Everything needs to be made and advertised and sold. But when it comes to art, I think it should always attempt to be aside from that and be more pure. So by Harry taking that old, weird America, as Greil Marcus called it, it was just referring to this time when America was really pure, when all the, when people, well, there was a banjo in every house, you know, everybody kind of could sing a few floating verses, you know, that they had learned from their grandmother, and their grandmother had brought over from across the sea, you know, stuff that was from pre-America, that was still in the hills and valleys. And ironically, this year, a friend of mine, Honey Boy Edwards, died, and he was the last Delta blues man of the first generation. He was 97, I believe, had walked with Robert Johnson, and had never stopped playing, had been on tour for his entire life until the day he died. And so I got to play with him a few times and talk with him, and I mean, I can't believe that happened, but when I knew that he was the last, he is the last, there are no more on earth like that. It's gone. That form of music is we'll call it dead. The originality of it, of the original core people, they're gone. That goes for all the bluegrass and everything else, you know, the Bill Monroes, and they're all gone. So this year was, for me, it's like a pretty important time, because that period in America is gone. So now it's a new generation that kind of has to keep it going somehow. We're at that same sort of crux position, I think, where it's like America doesn't know where the hell it is, doesn't know what it's about. We're all so excited by consumerism and materialism and all that stuff and world domination, yeah, like we haven't before in the past. But the true American art form of the oral storytelling and you know, these epic tales, these archetype symbols that go back to, you know, Greek times and Pythagoras, and, you know, back to ancient theories of sound and music that are age old, are not there anymore. You know, we're kind of trapped by pop, right? I'm in a house with a 15-year-old girl, so I get lots of Justin Bieber in my ear and Taylor Swift and all that stuff, and that's cool. But that's pop music. That's pop music, right? It's based on the oompa marching beat. It's all about conformity. It's all about there's no room in there for any real mystery. And the anthology was filled with mystery. It's completely mysterious. You cannot put your head around what it really means. Someone said once, it's like let's say Mole in the Ground, a song called Mole in the Ground by Lunsford Bamscarm, I forgot his first name. Bascom. Lamar Lunsford, whatever. But you could try to learn that song, and you will never learn it. Cuckoo Bird, you can never learn the song. It's just impossible to do it right. Because I guess there's no way to do it right. That's the beautiful part of it. You could buy a banjo, you could learn to play it, you can play every day at that song, you can listen to every recording ever done of that song, and you'll never figure it out. It's like a little riddle. A lot of those songs on there are riddles. So Smith, by putting together the anthology the way he did, and when I finally, you know, before I got to the anthology, I was obsessed with all the Pythagorean, you know, sound theories and all that stuff. I was studying Indian music with Shankar students, and I got how deep it was in their culture, and I was missing that in America. I did not see it, and the anthology reminded me that no, it was there. We just forgot about it, you know. So his goal with that anthology was to create a cultural stir by kind of, you know, playing a magic trick on people, on society. It was like a litmus test. He threw it out there like a seed and wanted to know who got it. You know, who got it, who didn't get it. It would kind of decipher who gets it and who didn't get it. And I've run into that in my life. I meet people, especially in my musical circle, I guess, more than any, because I'm just surrounded by them. But we tend to get it because we spend so much time with it. And what is it? It just means this ambiguous meaning, you know, but it's also fun at the same time. So it doesn't have this heady, sort of unapproachable quality, you know, that a Mark Rothko has. That's like, okay, you know, I can sit there and freak out about a Rothko, but no one else, you know, the majority of people can't. And that's too bad. But you put on some of this old music, you know, and anybody in this country, and pretty much in the world, from what I've seen, anywhere I've gone in the world, they're freaky about it. They love it. They get it. They really, you know, the Netherlands, for instance, for some reason over there, they just love old American music. I think they just love that we were so in tune with something. They do not value or they have not developed their folk music like America has. They've, you know, left the folk behind and have moved into the modern world, whereas America is built on this architecture of the old, even if we don't know it. So, you know, I tend to believe that the anthology did exactly what Smith wanted it to do, is that it created this cultural stir. You know, you get those folk artists taking what was being done in the 50s, that folk stuff from the, you know, the kumbaya folk, I call it. Kumbaya around the fire thing. It's just kind of stupid. And they knew that at that point, and that's why the anthology said, no, you could take this old music and do the same sort of treatment to your own way of performing and living, and it's not gonna, it'll be just as useful now as it was then. And so when they did that, it led to all the changes in folk music, led to the changes in rock music, and then you get the 60s and Woodstock, you know, when everybody runs up to Woodstock to chase Dylan, when Dylan was, I'm only bringing up Dylan because he's just the poster child for us. He's like our Christ figure. He's the one that started all this for the modern songwriter. He ran from New York to Woodstock to get away from all his, you know, idol worshipers. And then they all run out there to find him and stay there. And then eventually they go, well, we got to have a party. So let's throw a festival. And in that period of time, he had to run back to New York to get away from all of them because they wouldn't leave him alone. I don't know how Harry felt about that. And I really don't know what his thoughts were about, someone had said that he didn't really deal with that old American music after he had done the anthology. But I think that's just because he was a creative genius and just on to something else, right? He's on to something else. He just did it, threw it out like a drawing. Someone told me the other day that when somebody went and checked it out from the library, I guess in the 60s or something, and brought it to him, he had not seen it since he handed it to Mose Ash at Folkways. And he cried. He was like, oh my God, you know, there is that complete thought that I foresaw, and it's actually there in the world. So he had not seen the material representation of it. So I guess that's pretty much my philosophy or my take on the anthology. Is I think it was a pivotal moment in music where it drew focus to all aspects of American music when everybody got along in this make-believe America, old weird America, where everybody got along, everybody played a banjo, and if you did, then you could come over to my house and play, and race was not a question. You know, my grandpa used to say, man, we were so poor, we didn't have time to think about racial stuff. You know, it's like if you had an instrument, then come on over and make me happy. You know, let's have a drink and, you know, whatever, go back to your house afterwards. But they were so poor that they didn't, you know, it wasn't an issue back then. People were just struggling. So music served this wonderful social function. Does that happen now? I don't see it in our world. I don't see it as that sort of social function. We buy a ticket and go to some megalithic corporation who owns a theater and, you know, watch a folk concert. And but we don't see people. Well, you do in Portland, but you don't, everywhere else I've been, you don't see this this liquid weaving into the culture, you know, into society. You don't see, if you see some guy in the corner playing music in most cities, people are like, you know, ooh, you know. I'll tell you my experience as a musician. I'll play anywhere, but I'll play any dive, and I'll be sitting there playing in some corner of a room at some restaurant, and people come in and they're shocked. They don't know what to do. They're uncomfortable. If I'm sitting there and I'm them, they'll do this sort of thing because they don't know how to react to someone that's over there purging you know, actually giving something to them. I don't know you, but I'm giving you this thing, or I'm putting it out in the air. And they get really uncomfortable. And they won't look at you, they won't applaud or anything. I think that's pretty sad, you know, that they can't just relax. They'd much rather be home watching TV or watching some football game or something. Then they'll applaud, right? Then they'll talk about it around the cooler. But they won't talk about, you know, the function of a human, you know, doing something creative just for the hell of it. That's pretty sad. But on the positive side, in my lifetime as a visual artist and musician, in the last 15 years, I've seen a complete, I think we're in the midst of a renaissance again. I've never seen visual artists employed more ever in the history of the world. We're all employed. That's unheard of. When I got out of art school, biggest art school on the West Coast, they're like, sorry guys, they pulled us all in there and said, you guys, you know, 10% of you will be working in the field you're studying right now. And there's just no jobs, you know, it never has been, you know, and it's not going to happen. And then you know what happened? The internet happened at that period of time. And then like 6 months after I graduated, everybody's employed. We never saw it coming. You know, everybody's doing something. That's still the case. We've changed. The society has become what they say is you know, a matriarchal situation right now. We're a visual society now. We weren't 20 years ago too much. Now we're completely that. Everywhere you see visual, you know, you see design, you're seeing architecture change because of technology. So it's becoming a really interesting place. On the same side, the auditory side of things, music is as powerful as it ever was, or even more, because everybody has access to YouTube. How do you learn 20, 30 years ago when I was trying to learn to play this stuff, how would I learn? I'd sit there and do the, you know, spin the record, right? The old style. You turn it, slow it down, you try to, what the hell are they doing? You know, how does he play like that? And now you can just go on YouTube, you know, and you can watch Mole in the Ground done by, or you can watch The Cuckoo played by the guy who recorded it in 1927, Clarence Ashley, sitting there by a fire playing the damn song. You know, that's, oh my God, that's unbelievable. I would have killed for that 30 years ago. So when I got into Anthology, I started trying to see stuff. I wanted to see them, and I found a few videotapes of people like Son House and Robert Pete Williams and all those blues guys. And I remember I was working at Disney at the time, and I started bringing these tapes in and corralling people into the back room to watch this stuff. Like, look at, that's the actual guy. It's not a myth. That's the actual person right there. And they could have cared less, you know. They were too interested in something else, and that's fine. But I just remember having this dislocation of where I was with those sort of people where they just didn't care, and they never would care. So I just stopped trying to, you know, convert people. It's not my job to convert people. Maybe right now I'm kind of doing that, but it's not my job to convert people. It's just my job to have a good time and do what I like to do. And then if people like it, they get it, I guess. So basically, I brought some instruments here, and I'll play a song while my ear is completely out now. Does anybody have any questions about that ramble? Any thoughts on the anthology or music in general?
I have one question. You know, you were kind of talking about, you know, elite people and educated people. It sounds like the people who really got into it, like John Baez and Dylan, they're educated people living in a hip town, you know?
Sure.
Was Folkways trying to get it to those people, or were they just trying to make a buck when they got Harry Smith?
Well, everybody's trying to make a buck, right? But I don't know about Moses' intentions, but he, yeah, I mean, you're right. Those were educated like me, you know, it's like the ones that are lucky enough to, you know, to spend the Sunday talking about this stuff instead of working at a steel mill. It's pretty special. So I guess we have the money to buy the record, right? So the clientele there did have enough money to, so it was a commercial pursuit. But I think overall that Folkways represents, you know, a purity of archiving, you know, what we've lost, just like the Library of Congress. But the library doesn't try to make money from it, the Folkways does. So more power to them. I'm fine with trying to sell the product because that gets it out to the people. yeah, so.
What was the initial reaction to the anthology, and how long did it take for it to sort of become noticed?
I wasn't there, so, but I've read enough about it that I know that in '52 it sunk like a big heavy rock. You know, it just went nowhere. So how does that happen, that someone throws that? And okay, here's another interesting story related to that. An old folkie from that time that knew Harry did not like Harry's contribution. He did not like what Harry did. He liked what Alan Lomax did. And I was like, well, why? I didn't think he got, at that point I knew he didn't get that it was really just an art piece. You know, it was like an instigator. It wasn't just a safe deposit box, you know, like Lomax tries to make it. Harry picked the stuff that had stood the litmus test of society, that was good enough that that a record company would invest time in it and people would buy, as opposed to Lomax going out to record some, you know, rural person in a farm doing some song their grandmother had played. So he made a conscious effort to grab what had kind of the cream that had come up. It wasn't Tin Pan Alley music, right? It was proper folk music, but there's a difference between those two sets of thought. Lomax is like the one, him and Pete Seeger, for instance, love Seeger, but they're traditionalists, I call them. They're like the folk police. There's, in folk music, in blues, we call them the blues police. They're everywhere. They're like the ones that go like, well, that's how that song goes, you know, and it goes like this, dun, dun, it goes 12 bars, and if you go to 12 and a half, you're messing with the system. And inevitably, those people have no clue. They haven't really researched much at all or been obsessed. But Lomax, you know, I love it. I'm just using him as an example. They represent the side that say that folk music like that is not, I wouldn't even say they think it's art, because art is about continual change and continual reinterpretation and questioning, you know, of what you had before. You stand on the shoulders of who are before you, and you push a little farther. You don't try to arrive at the exact same spot, you know, the person before you is. What does that do? It does nothing for progress. So by, I got off topic there, but
I just want to give you kind of a 5-minute.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay,
I got a song that's about a little less than that. So I'll end on the fact that it did not do anything, but somehow someone heard it and passed it on to somebody else, and the people who got it took it somewhere, and I don't know about the sales on it overall, but who cares?
Catch the right people.
Yeah, it did the job eventually. It's just like a lot of the greats, you know, I mean, for instance, say Nick Drake. Has anybody ever heard of Nick Drake? Nick Drake killed himself because his records went nowhere. But now it's like completely huge, you know, so. Who's to say where things go, you know, with the test of time. So I'll play a little bit of this Cuckoo Bird song. Cuckoo Bird was made by Clarence Ashley, and the song is, it's a mysterious song about a bird that really doesn't mean much of anything, but in Harry's world it means everything. Tune the celestial monochord.
go up so high so I can see my baby. There she goes dancing by. Oh, my cuckoo, oh, you're a petty bird. You warble as you fly, but you never heard a cuckoo until the 4th day of July. Oh, Jack of Diamonds, oh, Jack of Diamonds, yeah, I know you from home, but you rob my pockets of all my hard-won silver and gold. Well, I play cards up in England. I played them all the way down to Spain. But I bet you, oh, $10, man, I'm gonna beat you the very next game. Oh, cuckoo, oh, you're a pretty bird as you warble and you fly, but you never holler cuckoo till the 4th day of July, till the 4th day of July.
Thank you, folks. So hey, come and see me sometime at the Laurel Thirst, every second Friday at the Laurel Thirst over there. Happy hours, 6 to 8 o'clock.
Say that again,
Please.
every...
Yeah, every second Friday. Me and my band, we play at the Laurel Thirst. It's a folk center of the West Coast. Laurel Thirst, yeah. Oh gosh, you guys got to come there.
Other side. All right.
Thanks. Harry.
Thank you.